How's it going, everybody? This is Matt, and welcome to the Poke Check Podcast. This is episode 8, and today I've got a couple of fellow podcasters with me. I've been wanting to have these guys on. We're good friends on Instagram, and I'm sure you've heard their podcast before, maybe once or twice, or way more than that. And those guys are the Center Ice Cardcast, including Eric. What's up?
Hello.
And returning in a way guest Aaron, as he's been on here. Awesome to have both of you guys on here, and happy Friday to both of you. How's it feel being on another podcast? I mean, is this the first time you guys have been invited to go speak on another platform, or have you guys been bouncing around a bit?
I think we've together been on one other show.
Okay.
I know, Aaron, you've been on Matt's show before. I think that's it though, unless I'm forgetting something.
All right. Well, I just kind of figured that you guys have built up a really good audience, and there's going to be time where hopefully you guys can go to the expo and do a little segment, just the two of you. I think that would be great, or with Billy, who we're going to talk about. But yeah, I just wanted to say, I mean, from my perspective, it's been really, really fun to listen to the Center Ice Cardcast, and we're going to also talk about, where that got going from. But I'm speaking to from the collectors that I've talked to, it's really kind of kept us invigorated with the hobby. I think when COVID hit, we three really had time to kind of take a step back and spend more time with our families, and also spend more time with cardboard. I think right now life is busy again, so we have to find that time, which can be tough sometimes. But one thing that was great about your guys' podcast is just the cards you were talking about in depth really got me to pull my cards out and start looking at them again. Eric, I'll start with you. Like, when you guys started this back in June of 2020, was that one of your goals going into it, was to create a show that got people digging a bit deeper with their collections?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think so. I don't know if that was, necessarily a specific goal that we had, but we wanted it to be something where, it made people really enjoy the hobby, whatever that may or may not have looked like. Just thinking about the hobby more, learning about the hobby more, just overall enjoying the day in, day out aspect of the hobby, and whatever that might look like for any given collector.
That's awesome. No, I've definitely done that, for me. What about you, Aaron? I mean, when he asked you to do it, did you have all these different ideas that were like, oh man, we could do this, or was it more of a kind of go into it with an open mind? Uh-oh, can Aaron hear us? Aaron's figuring out technology right now for those of us, those that are listening. That's okay. Oh, he's typing in the private chat here. Yeah, go ahead, Aaron. Yeah, Aaron, go for it. So when he comes back, we'll ask him. But Eric, when you asked Aaron to come into the show and do it, did you guys know each other prior a little bit before the show started?
Yeah, we were. Still to this day, we have never met in person. Aaron lives in the Toronto area, and I live in the U.S. In Indiana, and so we've never met in person, but we are longtime hobby buddies going back to, I don't even know, pretty much every forum you can think of, Hobby Insider, Sports Card Forum, Klutz and Chara, all of those, probably close to 10 years, I would say, maybe even longer ago than that. I'm not exactly sure, but, just kind of over the years, we're both younger guys, of course, and kind of having a similar outlook on the hobby, both being player collectors of, not necessarily lesser known players, but just not very prominent players. We just kind of became good friends and would message back and forth and stuff like that. So yeah, I think just kind of having a similar outlook, definitely was appealing to me when I was thinking of starting the show. I'd had the idea and was like, oh, I don't want to just do it on my own. I don't think it would be, maybe not interesting enough, but it would be a lot more interesting having a second voice on, and someone that is very good, with that, social media component and stuff. Because back when we started the show, I was not super active in terms of social media, kind of like how Aaron is. So, I think having kind of that side of it too was really valuable and beneficial. So yeah, I just sent him a PM on one of the forums and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about this. Like, what do you think?" And he
Nice.
took a little bit of time thinking about, like, okay, I've never given something like this thought. Let me think about if that's something that would interest me. And then probably, I don't know, a week or two later said, yeah, let's do it.
Nice.
So yeah, then we just took a few weeks to kind of figure out what that would look like and kind of start planning for it. And yeah, like you said, I think it was June 1st of 2020 was our very first episode.
Nice. That's awesome. Kind of hearing how the game planning was going is really neat. And I would say that you hit it, hit the nail right on the head. I mean, hearing, when both of you guys come on the show and you guys do a really good job of like each person has their segment, 2-3 minutes, 2-3 minutes, 2-3 minutes. And it's really nice to follow that because, you got the change in opinion, the change in voice, and you're both excited about collecting on your own level. So you're not getting kind of stagnant with the same thing throughout the whole show. There's a lot of change of pace, and I like that. So I think that's really worked out well for you guys. Right from the get-go, you could tell that it was going to be something that was going to be successful, because when people are that passionate about the hobby and bringing collectors together, I think it ends up just working itself out. And let's see what. So just for everybody that's listening right now, we're just gonna. As a teacher, I'm used to tech issues, so I don't know if Aaron can hear us, but Aaron got on here and it worked fine last time. So let's see if we can get him to here. I'm gonna kick him and see if he'll restart. But yeah, so I think starting from June, obviously when COVID hit, we all, like I was mentioning, we all kind of backed off and said, okay, how can we stay connected? How can we keep this hobby exciting? And then, that's when the prices really started going crazy at first. More cards were hitting the market. So it was really an exciting time in the hobby. And I think you guys started up right at the perfect time, because a lot of new collectors were coming into the hobby. And I think you and I and Aaron, we three share that passion for, like, I don't want to say educating new collectors, but like bringing them, information and inside details on cards that will help them appreciate more than just the price of a card, right? Like
sure.
when you look at, like, you and I have that really nice Fleury Pristine. Sure, it's worth a nice amount now, but that's not what the hobby is about to people like us. It's more about the design and, the intricacies of what went on behind the scenes to package that card, and how tough it is to pull it, and, how often you see it or don't see it, like getting in all those fine details. I think you guys do a really good job of, uncovering those for collectors. And it's good for new people to hear that, because you imagine coming into the hobby right now as a brand new collector, like where would you start?
Right.
So I think it's nice that you guys have a show where people can say, hey, a really good podcast is a Center Ice Cardcast. They're not giving you too much, but they're giving you enough that you can say, okay, let me go look for a card of my favorite player like that. Well, they collect guys that aren't very prominent anymore, but my guy will probably have cards of this same type. So, it gives them just enough to kind of start digging, and then the next episode they can do a little bit more. So I think you guys have set that really well. And I don't know if that was the goal going in, but hopefully you're seeing that now. Like, it's really been like exactly what certain collectors need. It's been really nice.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I think for us, at least for me, kind of having the frequency of roughly every couple weeks is kind of where we wanted it to be. Not only just a time commitment on our behalf, but also we wanted it to be something, where you wouldn't immediately start feeling like you were getting behind. I know some shows are more frequent than that, and it can just be very overwhelming.
Right.
If you miss it when it first comes out, then you're like, oh man, I only have a few days until the next one, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. So we wanted it to feel really manageable for the listener, and kind of more focus on the quality rather than the quantity with that.
Right. And it's good too, because it's like 30 to 40 minutes. My prep as a teacher is about 30 to 40 minutes. So just with the last episode that came out, I was like, as soon as I sat down, I knew I had about a half hour. Boom. It went on YouTube. I, put it off to the side, was doing my work, but it's definitely listenable in the background. And I think from my experience, doing podcasts on YouTube years ago for about 3 years on the baseball channel, that was something I enjoyed. Like, even though you might be showing off cards, you also want to, be talking about things that people can just put in the background and just listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I have an opinion about that. And yeah, I agree. Or I don't know. And, I'm kind of curious too, like up to now, you're 55 episodes in, what kind of feedback have you guys been getting from the hobby throughout this time? I imagine that you guys are getting different feedback based upon the people you're interacting with, but how has it been on your end?
Yeah, I would say it's been largely positive. I think a lot of people just appreciating, the content for what it is. And, I think a lot of people recognize that it is a lot of work. I mean, I know obviously you having a show, it's a lot of work.
It can be.
And it's not only just, the actual show, there's the planning that goes into it. And, one thing that we really wanted to do is have it just truly be a podcast and not really have a live element to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right when we were getting started, a good friend of ours, Jeremy Lee, who is the owner of Sports Cards Live, which I'm sure you guys are fully aware of, and have probably listened or watched many of his episodes. But he was also starting right around that same time, and obviously Sports Cards Live, it's a live show.
Yeah, right.
So we wanted to definitely differentiate ourselves there and not have that competition kind of feeling of it.
Mm-hmm.
We've both known Jeremy for many, many years, so we didn't want it to feel like we were stepping on his toes or vice versa or anything. So that we really wanted it to be purely a podcast. Now, yes, we have had a few live episodes, but that's definitely more of an anomaly than anything. So
right.
Yeah, I think with that comes a lot of time in the the post-production editing stage,
right.
which certainly can be pretty daunting, especially the longer an episode is, the longer it takes to do that. So which also kind of factors into the frequency of how often we're putting out an episode. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, I think getting back to your question, just the appreciation of the content. It's not just the two of us sitting talking about a topic all the time. We certainly do that sometimes, but trying to mix in those interviews with people inside the hobby and providing that insight and information like you were talking about.
Right. No, that's been, again, I'm hopefully once we get Aaron back, he's going to restart and try again. We can really dive into that. But that's interesting that you bring that up, because having the difference where you can edit things in post-production, that's where I'm really curious too. And maybe for anybody that's listening to this that might want to do something similar to what you and I and Aaron are doing, how much time would you say in a 35-minute to 40-minute episode, like the last one that came out, how much time did you spend in post-production before it went live?
Yeah, I would say for an episode of that length, you're probably looking at like at least 3 hours. I would say it's a lot of time.
Okay. Wow.
Now, granted, I'm very much a perfectionist, so I put a lot of time into it. You might hear a few ums throughout an episode, whereas if you guys start paying attention now, you will notice that I say about 1 billion times the rest of the night. So going through the audio, getting rid of all of those for me, for Aaron, for Billy, whoever it might be, getting rid of all that, cleaning it up. There's obviously going to be, awkward gaps in between when we're talking, whatever it might be, closing those up. Sometimes there's some audio issue, whatever it might be, getting rid of that, cleaning it up. So it does take a lot of time, and like I said, the longer the episode, obviously, the longer that takes. We've had episodes upwards of 1.5 hours or 2 hours. Actually, episode 56, which I'm working on right now, is probably going to be about 1 hour and 30 minutes, 1 hour 40 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So that is going to take quite a bit of time. I've probably already spent 2 or 3 hours on it already, and I'm probably only about a third of the way through it. So
okay. Wow, I mean, that just shows the dedication that you're putting into it. It's funny. My father listened to one of our first couple of episodes, and being new to being on camera, especially because we did it live and there was comments coming in. I mean, you have to not mess up really. And he goes, "You say too many times, even in your videos where you're showing cards." So that's really, something that we all have to work on. You listen to anybody that does podcasts, first of all, they're probably edited just like Eric's are. And also they have to work, we have to work really, really hard on the things that we're saying and the pace of which we're saying it. It can be challenging. I say it's, I haven't gone to those lengths yet, because most of the time I've done these live until I did the Poke Check podcast. I'm not ready to do live yet, but I think like you guys, I like really releasing it every Monday or every other Monday. It's really nice to just, people can know when to expect one, but they can get through it in a week without any trouble, or two, however long it's going to be. And it's been a little bit better to do that, because the other podcast, even though it had a bigger following, could have been Saturday, could have been Sunday, could have been Friday, and it could have been live early or later in the day. It was really tough to get a consistent audience because of that. So
sure.
Hopefully, you guys have seen that too. I'm sure your audience, when you tell people that's coming on Instagram or tell people it's coming on Facebook or Twitter or whatever, they, the same group of people can set that time aside to listen to it. So I think that's been really cool to see as well. You've definitely set the bar for me as opposed to, well, let's see if we're going to have him here. Everybody cross your fingers. Can you hear us, dude?
I think we're good. Sorry about that.
All right.
I'm so sorry. I was so strange. Yeah, weird technical difficulties when I joined the room.
All right.
I'm back. Well, what did I miss?
So you missed all sorts of stuff. We were just wrapping up the episode, man. So,
hey, it's been fun. It's been real. I'll catch you guys next week then.
So the floor is going to be yours here for a few minutes, Aaron. I definitely want to get your take too. Eric's talked to me about a few things, but the first one is, what were your feelings coming into this? Because when Eric asked you, and he was talking about how you and him, you got different sounding voices, you're really comfortable on the microphone and talking through things. But was this something that you were pretty excited about when he approached you to do this podcast?
I was definitely hesitant at first, because I don't think I'm as comfortable on the microphone as as it seems.
As he's edited you to be, right?
Oh yeah, he edits me so much. So it was definitely a hesitant thing for me at first. But we talked about it at, if we were to go through with this, what would we want to make this? And it all sounded really, really good. And I just said, why not? It sounds awesome. And, I was just really thrilled that he would ask me. So, and like I said, when we started talking about it and kind of brainstorming what this could be, it all sounded awesome at every turn. And I just couldn't really say no. So it was definitely something that was, again, a little hesitant at first, but it was definitely something that I couldn't turn down. It was really something really cool, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Awesome. So was it really that easy, Eric? Was it that easy to convince him? Just a couple of conversations, right? And he's like, let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah. I mean, it took a couple weeks to get him there, but I think, I don't know how many times I asked you about it, maybe only a couple times or something. Just hey, what do you think? Because I knew when I came up with the idea, Aaron's the guy I want. There's other people I could think of and I could have asked, but when I thought of the idea, it was immediately yeah, I want Aaron doing this. Right. So, it was kind of one of those where it's if he doesn't want to do it, then maybe I'll reassess if I want to do it at all. So, I wasn't in any rush to get it going or anything. From the time I had the idea until when we launched the podcast was probably 2 or 3 months. I think I thought of the idea probably a week after COVID hit North America, big time. So right. Yeah, it took a while, and I was just patient with him, waiting him out until he broke down and agreed to do it.
That's awesome. Well, I remember having Aaron on here, and this was when I was doing my Instagram interview series. It was a little more formal, and You could just tell, Aaron, you were pretty stoked about it, because it was still fresh and you guys were only a few episodes in. I mean, looking back now, do you guys feel like you both have had those days where, Eric, you're like, dude, I'm so busy, I don't know if I can record, or vice versa, and you kind of motivate each other like, hey, we gotta get this thing done, like find a time? I mean, has that helped having two people to kind of keep each other on your toes?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, I don't think we'd be at 50. Well, we recorded 56 episodes so far, like without each other, because there's definitely been those weeks for me where it's like, if this was my own podcast, like just by myself, I would definitely have life things get in the way. And then, it would prevent you from posting, for a long time. And then it's like, well, they've been without content for like a month or something. Is it worth going back to? So it's like, I think that's where the podcast would probably be if we were hosting it just by ourselves. Mm-hmm. But I mean, again, just having that other co-host there, we definitely push each other, from week to week. Like sometimes it's myself, I'm slacking, and then it's like, okay, well, we got to get a time going. And then sometimes, it's the other way where, we're just busy. So,
right.
Yeah. And there's definitely been times like that too. I mean, back in the fall, we ended up moving into a house. So that was a very busy time. And then like at the beginning of this year, Aaron went on a multi-week trip to Sweden. So
awesome, dude.
There was that. If you haven't listened to that episode, shameless plug for hearing about Aaron's amazing trip, because that was awesome.
Yes, that was so much fun to listen to.
Yeah, definitely the experience of a lifetime for any collector, for sure. Not to spoil too much, but there have definitely been times where it's been hard for one or both of us at any given time, but just knowing like, we got to get it done. I know even going back to the series 1 review episode, that was the first episode after the Topps Pristine box break. And that was about a month in between episodes, just because part of it was because we were kind of just waiting for series 1 to come out so we could talk about it. Right. So that was naturally, I think 2 or 2.5 weeks as it was, but then getting the time to record it and then edit and everything kind of tacked on another 1.5 weeks. But yeah, I think having each other definitely motivates us to stick with it and make sure we're staying on top of it.
For sure. No, and that's huge about, having two people there for that. I've kind of, when I first started the baseball one, there was 2 of us, and this is something that, I'll just share for people thinking about doing in the future. When you team up with somebody, like, you have to be transparent with your communications and your feelings about the podcast, because if my good friend Greg hears this, we got some information from somebody about how we should run it, and I kind of took it and ran with it. And there wasn't enough communication, and he slowly ended up backing off. So then it was just me gathering people every week, to do episodes, which worked great in a way. But it's almost, you look back and you think like, man, it would have been really nice to always have the 2 of us there with somebody else. And that was something that I took from it, is that and I'm sure you guys have learned this along the way, like, each of you are going to have your own ideas, but it's so important to be able to share those and kind of find a middle ground, whether you go with Aaron's idea for an episode or Eric's idea, or you both come up with it at the same time. I think, that's super important. Do you feel like that's been one of the easier aspects of your podcast? I'll start with Aaron, like just coming up with the ideas. Do you feel like that's gone pretty well?
Yeah, I mean, like when we first started, to give anyone some ideas if they're thinking of doing the same thing, like we just had like a list of topics, like just on a document that we can kind of pull through. And we had a general idea of, like I said, like when we first started it, Eric and I were kind of brainstorming like what kind of stuff we would have. And then so that kind of led off into, actual episode topics, like when a product comes out that we want to cover, stuff like that. Like that's kind of like an obvious one. But then like all the other weeks, we're both suggesting ideas. Sometimes it's my idea, sometimes it's Eric's idea. Like Eric came up with a great idea. I'm not going to spoil it, but for the last episode that we just recorded, episode 56, that was Eric's idea. So like something like that, we'll both like stumble upon like an idea, and it will be like, oh, like that's a good one. Like we got to find a way to sneak that in. Maybe we'll sneak it in like down the road. Like if we just covered something more heavier or a bigger product review, like we'll maybe sneak in a nice topic a couple episodes later, like just to keep things fresh. Because otherwise, if you start off with more heavy hitting ideas, which is like what I think I wanted to do because I'm, new at this whole thing. So like, I think my idea was to go heavy, like almost every episode. But then Eric was good about that because he wanted to like kind of slow it down and was like, well, we still got to wait for this project to come out. And then we have, an idea. And then we have maybe this product that's coming out. And then we have an idea. So instead of like me, like if I had it my way, like I would do like 4 heavy hitting episodes in a row. But then it kind of lags a little bit.
Right.
Which isn't good either. So like we both kind of like bounce ideas off each other and find a good mix. And it's been working really, really well. So yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. And Eric, are you feeling that same way? Has it been easy for you too? Like when Aaron's like, dude, I'm going on this trip. This is going to be a perfect episode. Like,
I don't even think that was planned. It just happened. Well, there's stuff like that too, where it's like, like things just happen. And it's like, could this be a podcast episode or like a little topic where like, oh yeah, like for sure.
Right.
Or, it's 10 minutes before we record or something like that. Like, or while we're recording, we'll just like slip something in real quick. Like it's a bit of everything, honestly.
Right.
Yeah. That's a good point. You mentioned about the one while you were gone. I kind of thought like it is probably good to try to do something while he's gone, just so we don't have like a month where we're not doing anything. And then it just worked out that that's right when Fanatics bought out Topps. So even though as it stands today, that doesn't really affect the hockey card hobby at all. I think one thing that we, try to stress is, yes, we are very much a hockey card podcast, but that doesn't mean that other things happening in the hobby as a whole aren't important or that hockey card collectors can't learn from those or can't appreciate those. So when that news happened, it was just like, okay, if I'm trying to figure out something to do while he's gone, this can be a really easy episode, so to speak, where it's just, yep, this big news happened. I'll get Jeremy on to talk about it since he is very much a multi-sport collector and,
Right.
he has a very wide scope of the hobby and knows a lot of, hobby insiders and stuff like that. So, that was kind of just a thinking on your feet and reacting and making it happen type of thing. But yeah, like Aaron said, right from the get-go, before we even published an episode, we had put together a list of topics and guests and things like that. And we still probably are not even halfway through touching on all of those. So there's a lot of stuff still in the hopper that, a lot of those are kind of just things like if we don't have an idea, we can go back to that.
Okay.
But it's not like we actively work through it or anything at this point. A lot of the episodes do kind of just, the idea comes to you, whether that be a new product that comes out or something that happens in the hobby, or one of us gets a really nice card that we want to highlight, whatever it might be. I feel like we only turn back to that list probably once every like 2 or 3 months at this point. So
wow.
Yeah, it's nice in that way.
Well, then it is really fun to kind of go at hot topics. Like my recent episode, I had Chris back on. Fleury just got traded. Bring on my buddy who's a Fleury collector, and we just go for it. Like, okay, then that one, like I was going to have you guys on. Like, well, let's do them next week. Talk about Fleury that just happened. It's nice to have that flexibility because it's not like you guys are saying, well, when we get to 100, we're done. So we better make sure we get through everything. Like there's lots of possibilities. And speaking upon that, I feel like this is a perfect time to mention that you guys have one of the best connections in the hockey hobby world right now as far as getting really fun. Like I love to nerd out to this information. I know I'm not the only one, but having somebody from Upper Deck, and I'm talking about, is it Billy Celio? Am I saying that correctly? What's up, Billy? Hopefully you see this. Really cool guy. Love listening to every time you get him on the podcast because he's a guy that works at Upper Deck and he's heavily involved in the sets that are coming out. I don't know if he's involved in every single one. I know that you guys know that a little better than I do, but the excitement in which he talks about the different products that he's helping make and shape, and especially extended series. That was the first time that I really thought, okay, like he's trying to bring the nostalgia back. He's bringing those holographics back. He's bringing back these 90s inserts that were staples in all these other sports. Like he's got the idea right for the guys in our generation, that collected cards as a kid. And he's really trying to bring that back. And so looking back on that, Eric, I'll start with you on this one. Were you the one that was able to make that happen, to get Billy on the show? And just kind of talk a little bit about how that all transpired. I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I was the one that first connected with him. Going back to our buddy Jeremy, he had Billy on his show, and I just thought, hey, like that's a really good connection to have. I'm gonna reach out to him and just introduce ourselves and see if he would ever want to come on down the road. And another kind of thing that I think definitely differentiates us from Jeremy is he really likes getting kind of like the stories of the hobby, whereas whenever we have Billy on, we focus on the products themselves. Not that we don't care about Billy's stories and stuff like that, but we just want to have it different. So
right.
And like you said, he's a great resource for getting that information about products. To answer your question, he is not the only product manager that they have. So he's not the one building every product,
right?
But he is the main hockey guy. So I would say he probably builds at least half of their hockey products, if not more, including some of the biggest ones like the Cup and Series 1 and Series 2. So he's the end-all be-all expert when it comes to the content within those products, because he's the one that determines what that content is. Right. So, whenever there is one of those bigger products that comes out that he's responsible for, we love getting him on because he's able to give those answers that no one else can really give. One example, that I always turn back to is 2021 Series 1. There was so much conversation about the Alexi Lafreniere Young Gun, what went into that, why, all of that, and of course you went on social media at that time, so many misassumptions and, misunderstandings and people just saying things that were blatantly false.
That never happens on social media. What do you mean, man? Never.
Yeah, there's never lies on the internet. Like, what are you guys talking about?
Yeah, that was actually the only time that's ever happened. No, but
yeah, right.
He, was able to come on, and we were able to very thoroughly break down everything about that card because it was such a hot button topic. And like I said, he knows these products better than literally anybody because he's the one that builds them. Mm-hmm. So it's not like he's just like, well, I think this is how it works. Like, no, if he says something, that's the fact of the matter. So, getting that connection and having a really good relationship with him has been invaluable to us, I would say. And, like Aaron said earlier, even just kind of off the record stuff too, I talk to Billy probably at least like once a week, just about whatever it might be, random stuff. Mm-hmm. Constantly talking to him, picking his brain about things. And, that's just been a really, really good resource for us, not only personally as collectors for our own collections, but also being able to provide that information to the hobby.
Awesome. Well, and Aaron, to go to you, like, I think you and I might be in the same boat here. I feel like I'm getting more out of the hobby and more out of my Upper Deck cards now that Billy is on your guys' show, and I'm hearing him talk about cards that I have in front of me, like the Overshadow from the Cup last year. That card, when I saw it of Fleury, my heart skipped a beat, man. Like, I was like, that is so cool and unique, and then to hear him talk about it after it was in my hands, I'm like, oh my gosh, this has just made this card and just collecting these cards so much better. Did you have the same kind of effect? I mean, even looking back on your Jonas Inroth Upper Deck cards and like knowing a little bit more how that was all made, I mean, I'm guessing it really invigorated you even more, right?
Oh, no question. I mean, just hearing about those stories that like brought those cards to life is just next level coolness. Especially like Billy designing a lot of the flagship stuff, the key cards that everyone is looking for every year, and he gets to play a part in that. And so when we as collectors, like actually get these cards into our collections, it just means that much more, like the Fleury you were talking about. It's just so cool. And even like for me, not so much the design choices. I mean, like obviously that's a big component, but just the way he talks about, picture selection, like stuff like that, just the nitty gritty of these cards, and that had to be duplicated by however many times, to get the base set and all the inserts and stuff like that, and approve them, like stuff like that. So, like just the whole process into making a card is just awesome. And Billy has been doing that at Upper Deck for quite a few years now. So, including cards in my own collection. And so it again, like you said, it brings it to a whole nother level. So I'm just always appreciative of that insight.
Well, I have another example for you guys that when I saw the Meta Universe checklist, there was one card on there. I think you guys know where I'm going with this, that Fleury had, where I'm like, A, I remember that set as a kid. B, this is probably one of the most prominent Metal Universe basketball inserts from the 90s. Like a Michael Jordan of this is like one of the holy grail cards from the 90s. So when I saw Fleury was in Platinum Portraits, I thought to myself, okay, this is like the card of 2021 that I want to have before the end of the year. Like this is it. And to hear him talk about how long it took to make one card, I believe it was 15 to 30 minutes or something on your podcast.
Something like that. Yeah, he was saying like it would be very hard to fake. So he would like to see people try because it was just so painstakingly intense to make. That was really cool. And I know this card you're talking about. So congrats,
that made it 10 times better. I mean, I'm sure Eric and Aaron and myself, we all have cards that he's talked about. And to have those in your hands, it takes them to a whole nother level. You know what I mean? Like, sure, the Fleury was not cheap, but I don't look at that card as just being cool because it was rare. I like it even more because of how painstaking it was to make it and how intricate it was to make and then put into packs. And I did notice something cool. I would have loved to have seen this video before you guys had Billy on, because the guy that I saw pull a Crosby, I'm not sure if it was the one that Jeremy Lee bought, but the Crosby was behind a Sidney Crosby. What was that acetate insert where they're holding the cup up?
Hardware Heroes or something.
Hardware Heroes, right?
Champions.
Right. It was behind that. So after talking to Mike Kramer of Pacific, which was just a dream come true, he said that the rarest of inserts would be hand inserted. And so I'm wondering if, because of how flimsy they are and how delicate they are, if those were like, all right, stop the machine or whatever, and boom, somebody puts one in a pack, and off it goes. And so it was kind of interesting to see that. And love the finer details, man. I mean, I feel like our collections have even more meaning when you find out all those little behind the scenes facts about them, now, sure. You guys, again, you guys try to have them on, I want to say probably once every fourth or fifth episode, I want to say. Do you guys have other, episodes kind of in mind in the future without spoiling anything, knowing that he's involved with certain sets? I mean, do you guys kind of plan ahead that way?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're always kind of aware of when he has stuff coming up. Like I said, the cup is obviously probably the biggest product of the year. And that's something that he's in charge of. So we always can be looking forward to that. Series 1, like I said, one that I kind of like talking about just because I really like the product and always have is Upper Deck Ice. That's another one that he's in charge of. So, there are definitely some of those products that, you can kind of just say, yep, every year it comes out, we're going to have him on to talk about it. Sometimes just kind of based on how the release calendar works, that might mean he's on a couple times in the span of a couple months, and sometimes there's a gap where he might not be on the show for 3 or 4 months. Right. But whenever it's one of those kind of bigger, more important products that a lot of collectors really enjoy collecting, or if there's just a lot of information to be shared about it, we definitely make a point of getting him booked for that and making sure that we're sharing that information.
Aaron, I'm going to start with you on this one. Tell me one of your favorite facts that Billy shared on the podcast with you guys.
Favorite facts? Oh man, it was probably that card that you were talking about, the Fleury. The
Overshadow?
Just coolest fact. That's a really good question.
Because you guys are hearing this, like you are the first two people outside of the people he works with that are not working at Upper Deck that hear these things being told before the episode goes live. Because you both kind of, I know that you can record and send stuff back and forth, but you're the first to hear these things. So like when he's sharing these things live with you, just give me an example of something he shared where you're like, wow, no way,
Oh man. Like just the card that you were talking about, like punching the individual holes into it, that part just made me go like, wow, like you guys did that. That's so cool. I'm piggybacking like after the thing we just talked about, but still, like that to me was the coolest moment. It was something where I did go like, whoa, like they really care about these things, and that's so cool, like the attention to detail. But like another thing I just thought of, it's not really so much like a wow moment, but just the fact that like Billy will allude to the fact that like Upper Deck does monitor like what people are saying, and they do really want to come out with a really solid product that hopefully patches those holes. The collectors might not want this insert, so okay, that's fine. Like maybe that's a little stale. Let's replace that and try and think of something new. So they're constantly working behind the scenes and listening to collectors and stuff like that. So that to me, like it's not really like a wow factor, but it's something that really impresses me a lot. And it's something that just really, like, I think people should know about Upper Deck is that they actually do care about what collectors think and monitor what they're saying, like product to product. So I just feel like that's really important.
For sure. No, I agree. And then before we dive a bit deeper into that, Eric, what about you? I mean, I guess I can maybe generalize a little bit. What is one of your favorite things about having Billy on and have with you guys and having that connection? I mean, what have you enjoyed the most about it?
Yeah, I think just being able to share that inside information. Like I said, he knows these products better than literally anybody else in the world. So being able to get that information, get those answers to those questions, I think is hugely valuable. Going back to the Lafreniere Young Gun, a lot of people were complaining about, well, his number isn't shown. It's just clearly a set up photo shoot, like it's not an action photo, whatever. And what a lot of people didn't understand is that photo shoot was actually conducted prior to the draft even happening. So yeah, he didn't have a number because he wasn't even a member of the New York Rangers at that point. They did photos of him with the Rangers, with the Los Angeles Kings, with the Ottawa Senators. Like it wasn't just oh yeah, he's gonna debut next week, we should probably figure something out. Like it was planned so many months ahead of time, that they were just naturally kind of boxed in. And even the number thing, okay, he goes to the Rangers, he's not wearing 11 because of Mark Messier. If he goes to the Kings, he's not wearing 11 because of Anze Kopitar. If he goes to the Senators, he's not wearing 11 because of Daniel Alfredsson. So there was no way for them to know that. So there's only so much they could really do. So just, hearing that information and being able to share that was, I think very important for sure. And then I'll interject as well with a couple of my favorite bits of information from him. One that actually just happened in the Series 1 review episode was him sharing the name of the base autograph parallels, because that has not been published or said anywhere. To the best of my knowledge, our episode there was the only time that the Snow Spray name has been publicly mentioned.
That was the first time I heard it too. I was like, whoa, wait, what? So I went up and looked at the picture. I'm like, oh yeah, there it is. Yep. Okay.
So just like something like that, you won't see the cards listed as that anywhere on any checklist or anything because no one knows that. So something like that was really cool. And then one other one, I think to answer your question, another thing is he'll share information that just makes you appreciate certain cards so much more, whether it be those platinum portraits, or whatever it might be. One that stands out for me is the NHL collection cards from the Cup. Jacob Slavin was actually in that set. So cool. And it's kind of hard to see on a camera. You almost have to just hold the cards in hand. But they actually use there you go. They use both silver and gold foil on the cards, which in Billy's development of this and research and planning for it, he is not aware of any other card that has ever used multiple colors of foil on the same card, just because it is insanely difficult to do that. When you look at how precise all of that is, the printing to do that is just incredibly difficult to do. So just hearing that information about a card like that just makes me appreciate it so much more than, if I had never heard or known about that information, it would just kind of be like another card.
That's so awesome that you said that, and that's the same, in essence, the same reaction I had when the Overshadow card. I tracked one down. I remember seeing it on the on eBay. When the product comes out, you start seeing cards coming up. I'm like, those cards, the ink almost looked like it was fake. You know what I mean? Like, because the pens were thick and almost looked like it was part of. And then you get a card and you look at it flat with some light on it. You can barely see the ink there. I'm like, that is so cool. I've never seen a card done like that. And it's kind of a niche card. I've heard collectors give me feedback like, I don't know, I'm really not feeling that. That is awesome because I've never seen anything like it, just like you're talking about the Slavin. And Aaron, I know you're nodding your head down there. I mean, I'm sure you've seen some of those cards that he's talking about, but you're right. I've never seen anything like that. And just the way that he talks about the cards, I can't say that enough. Like, I love his passion for the hobby. Like, I know as a collector that whether it's Marc-Andre Fleury or Jaccob Slavin or somebody else that a friend of mine collects, that there's been a lot of thought that's gone into creating that set, and a lot more than people think, which I wanted to just touch on real quick. Aaron, maybe not as much, but Eric and I have had some fun at certain collectors' expenses, just with like their negativity towards the company. And I know that you guys don't talk about that with Billy, and that's great, other than the fact that he's like, yeah, we're a little behind. We know that. We're trying our best. And that was all he said. I thought that was great. Like, we don't need to hear anything else. We know that you guys are trying. But, certain people on the hobby, they like to just be negative about Upper Deck. And one thing that I appreciate about Eric, and he set me straight too, was it's not like this personal attack on a player not being in a checklist, or a design coming out late, or a design not being as good as you like it. Like, there's so much more that goes on to get the sets to people, that I think we need to look at it as a whole. Like when a product comes out, you guys have helped me realize like all the intricacies that go on to get that to hobby shops, to get it to collectors. And it's allowed me, like, recently I saw that he's not an Ultimate Collection. It's like, okay, well, why is that? Well, it's an older checklist. Maybe he didn't get to sign for him, but let's see how amazing these cards look when they come out. And I'm excited to see Ultimate Collection get open, because that is almost like the Cup. That's like right there with Premier, where they can try some really unique foils and different pictures and cardstock and whatnot. So it's definitely helped me appreciate it a little bit more. But do you guys feel like you almost have the responsibility, Aaron, I'll start with you, to advocate for Upper Deck a little bit more now that you've had him on?
Oh, for sure. You hear the behind the scenes stuff, and like definitely, like when someone comments on something, or if someone asks you a question, on Instagram or whatever, like why are things this way, and you try to explain to them nicely. Like, I hear you. The question is totally valid, but also, and usually it's about why are certain things done this way? This guy made his debut last week or something like that, or last month. And I'm like, well, a lot of these things can be explained that the product is probably made like 6 months in advance, probably more than that planned, as far as like getting something on paper, like, for example, a checklist. So,
Right.
And also like Upper Deck, as far as like premium sets and things like that, like Upper Deck has made strides to sort of limit certain players' like memorabilia and autograph usage. So, for example, if Gretzky or whoever, or Crosby has like a limited logos or something like that, like he might not be in the next patch auto set, like just because they're trying to limit certain material or certain autographs, because those stuff's really expensive. And so I think in the last couple of years, they've really tried to limit some of those guys. Right. So sometimes people are complaining like why aren't these legends in this set or that set? And it's like, well, they got to plan in advance, and they're trying to really use them strategically. And with the amount of products that Upper Deck has, it's just not possible to use them in all products. So a lot of the times it's mainly explaining to collectors that this stuff, like you mentioned, happens so much in advance. And so, you can't hit everything in advance, and that's just the way it goes,
Well, and Eric, go ahead and continue on that. I mean, as far as like advocating for Upper Deck, because I really appreciate Facebook and think, is it maybe Hobby Insider or Twitter? I've noticed, and we've shared a couple laughs, like, nice one, like, do you feel just a little bit more, not responsible, but like take pride in being able to stand up for the products that you hear about from Billy?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and, not only is it just being able to know and share that information, but also just having that relationship with Billy, knowing how much effort and time he puts into it, how much he cares about it, and other people at Upper Deck too. I mean, we're good friends with Chris Carlin as well, who's no longer at Upper Deck, of course. But yeah, I mean, just being able to get that information, I do feel some responsibility in that regard to, when there is such widespread information about a product or whatever it might be, if I know the answer to something, I feel like I should share that. Now, of course, I'm not going to be nasty about it or, call people names or whatever. But, if I know something is a certain way for sure, and I see people saying something completely contrary to that, I feel like, yeah, it is my responsibility in a way to say that, because not everybody gets that information. So, yeah, I definitely do want to share that. Piggybacking on what Aaron said about, how far in advance things are planned, I think that's something that the average collector just has no concept of. Typically, going even pre-COVID, you're looking at least 10 to 12 months ahead of time that the planning for a product starts. Since COVID, over these last couple of years, that's even more. 12 months is like bare bone minimum at this point. It's probably more like 16, 18 months. I know frequently whenever we have Billy on, and we're talking about a product that he's made, so let's say, we just talked about 21-22 Series 1. Well, after we stop recording, then we'll continue talking to him just about random stuff for a while. And, I know he was talking about the inspiration for the Portraits design this year. And, he's saying, yeah, like, this is what I was kind of going for, but wait for the 22-23 ones, because those are awesome. So it's like, that's how far in advance this stuff is taking place. It's not just a, last minute decision or whatever it might be. And people say, whoa, the checklist, or, why is this guy not on the right team? Well, again, those things are determined so far ahead of time that you really can't go back and change it at that point, because then you're essentially starting that whole process over again. So, people complain about how late products are now and everything, and then also complaining about the quality control or, the team that someone's on, whatever it is. Okay, well, if you want them to fix that, then tack on a few more months, and then you're not going to be happy about that. So they kind of have to pick their battles, and, just like Aaron said, people need to understand that they truly do care. They are doing the best that they can, especially in the situation that they're in right now. There are very few printers in the United States and even around the world that can provide card manufacturers with what they need. Like, I want to say in the United States, there's like 4 or 5 printers in the whole country that can do what card manufacturers need. So guess what? Upper Deck, Panini, Topps, Leaf, they're all using these same printers. And those printers have many other clients outside of card manufacturers. So, there's just so many things like that people don't understand, don't think about, that goes into it, that causes the quote unquote issues that happen. So yeah, I think it's really, like you said, kind of, I feel like it's a responsibility to be able to share that information with people when I can. Sometimes that's hard to do just because you feel like people don't care what you're saying, and whatever their thought is obviously correct. So sometimes that can be frustrating, but yeah, I mean, just knowing that information and having that relationship with Billy, it definitely, is important to me to try to put that information out there, as best and as often as I can.
No, and that's, I mean, you've swayed somebody. I mean, I'm coming at it from a different perspective, where a year ago or so, I made the decision that I was only going to collect Marc-Andre Fleury. So here I am coming in. I haven't been around for pre-COVID releases when he was in everything, which he, rightly so, faces the franchise type thing. once I kind of took a step back, and okay, let me listen to Billy talk about these things, and you were saying different things, and Aaron was saying different things, and we're all bummed that certain players don't make a checklist, sure, but you're collecting Jacob Slavin, who's a defenseman for a great team, but he's not well known outside of guys that really follow hockey. I mean, I know how great of a player he is because I watched him play with Aho. Love Sebastian Aho, but for him to get in a checklist is probably even tougher than it is for Fleury to get in a checklist. So I know that we're, and then Jonas Enroth is going to make a checklist out of nowhere just to help Aaron out. I'm sure it's happening. But
I hope so.
Yeah. but you know how it is. So like, I think I look back and knowing that a product is made a year ago when Fleury in essence was benched in the playoffs during COVID, I think that for the rest of those products that were being planned from the end of the playoffs to the off season of the next season, he didn't make it in there because things were moving and they wanted to get other players in there. Like you said, the Jacob Slavins, the Erik Karlssons, who had a great year, Shea Theodore, guys like that. So I get it. It helped me understand it a little bit more and with the trade and all these other things. But I think it's been really cool to see you guys getting that information out to collectors to kind of set the record straight. And if they're not going to be receptive of it, then fine. Go off in your corner and complain, but you're never going to be happy no matter what. So let's maybe target those collectors that really like to hear that information, that get more out of it, and I think that's been another aspect of your podcast that I think hopefully isn't overlooked too much, but you guys really do justice to the company who I'm so glad Upper Deck's still making hockey cards. I you know how much I love Panini, but I feel like if they got a hold of the license, it would be a lot of overproduction of parallels, and I'd be chasing 50 Panini Prism Marc-Andre Fleury parallels, which kind of takes a bit of the lust away, as opposed to just getting the exclusives and just getting the high gloss. I mean, you're just going for, and the French and the clear cuts. You got 4 to go for in the entire set. Makes it so much more fun when that one card comes in and more significant, I have an opinion. I have a question for you guys. I'm just curious on your opinion because I don't know if you had this information when you talked to Billy. I was reading on the forums. You guys are both on Hobby Insider, which has been fun for me to be a part of, by the way. Really neat community of people. And Aaron's well-versed on there as well. I see you creating different threads, and it's been really cool. But somebody made a post about the exclusives and only getting like 2 or 3 per case. That made me think like, well, it's no wonder Series 1 was tough to get out because they really made a lot of product for everybody, and they stretched it even more, knowing they wouldn't get as many products out in this time frame or this stretch of the year. Is that something you guys were kind of curious about yourselves? Because I know in the past people were saying, 7 to 10 exclusives per case. Now it's like 3 or 4 max. What do you guys think about that? I mean, do you feel like it's me, or had there some truth to it?
I think there's definitely like more production than years past. I mean, as far as like the exact how much, who knows? But I've heard some people have some theories and some calculations and stuff like that. So yeah, like I think it, if there is, more production, obviously the hits are going to be fewer and farther between. But it's kind of cool though, like having a hit out of 100 being rare again. I mean, that's cool.
Absolutely.
It brings it back to, like the 90s a little bit, or the early 2000s when, a hit like that actually meant something. So, I mean, that part is really cool for me to see. So,
Eric, I'm not sure. You have to forgive me. Did Slavin make Series 1, or is he going to probably be in 2? He did make Series 1.
He's Series 1, yep.
So were you going hard after that exclusives? Because I know the first one I saw, I'm like, I don't care that it's $30. Like, these are impossible to find anyway. So, boom, went for it.
Yeah, I don't think I've gotten an exclusives yet. I have some of his stuff, but like he was in the Fanimation set this year, so that was first one I saw. I made sure to grab it just in case. I think there's been 3 or 4 that have popped up since then, but again, it's like you don't know how tough these are. You just got to grab one when you see it.
Exactly.
As long as it's within reason, of course. Not like I was going to spend $200 on one or anything, but yeah, to your point, yes, they are definitely harder to get, the exclusives. I haven't watched too many case breaks of Series 1. I think just a couple, but I was kind of following along with Ziri's case break of it on YouTube, and he only pulled 1 in his case. Funny enough, was Nicholas Hjalmarsson, but so I got to reach out to him.
Heard that name before.
See if he'll move that one, but yeah, I mean, it is because they are producing more of it. which, again, can be a positive in a lot of ways. Like Aaron said, it makes those cards more desirable a little bit. They're harder to find, harder to get, makes you appreciate them a little bit more. On the downside, people are so used to them being more frequent, being easier to pull, easier to find. So some people might view it as negative, some might view it as positive, but I do think that Upper Deck has made a pretty apparent decision in order to try scaling back on certain things, add that desirability into certain cards again. Whether that be the numbered stuff, whether that be autographs and memorabilia. I keep going back to our Series 1 episode, but Billy said the black canvas parallels exist in large part to not replace memorabilia cards, but to decrease that memorabilia content and offer better value to the collector. He was saying, like, would you rather get a Dylan Larkin jersey card or a Trevor Zegras black canvas? Yep. Easy answer.
I think we can all agree on that answer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And, I love Larkin, so I would love a jersey card.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
No, but the black parallels are really cool this year.
Yeah. And, awesome. Being a Wings fan, Billy would appreciate that Larkin card as much as anybody else. But jerseys cost a lot of money, and, autographs cost a lot of money. And, he was saying so often you'll just see game jerseys sitting in a dollar bin at a show or a shop or whatever, and the value just isn't checking out based on what their expense is and kind of what the value, quote unquote, should be for those cards. So figuring out ways to still provide collectors with that value and, the box that they're opening or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But balancing that out with where they need to be at and still keeping certain types of cards special, like Aaron said, whether that be this player doesn't always have a limited logos, or whatever it might be, trying to balance that stuff out, not only for the benefit of the collector, but also for themselves. Another thing that a lot of people seem to forget, conveniently or not, at the end of the day, Upper Deck is a business. They have to be making money. So, there's a lot that goes into it. So, yeah, I think that, kind of just understanding the context of why these decisions are made is so important. It's not just, exclusive cards. Well, we'll just make them tougher for no reason. Like, no, there's a reason for it. So, I think just understanding that and wanting to understand that is very important.
Well, Aaron, you have a pretty big understanding of those cards out of 100 being tough. I mean, you still have an Enroth card from MVP out of 100 that has not shown its face for you, which we all know, like, if there's a Jonas Enroth card that is rare, we usually are like, yo, do you have this? Like, even if you probably do, we are like, you're the first one we send it to. And so, I mean, that's got to be kind of cool thinking like, okay, even some of these other players that are not as well known, like, their cards out of 100 are going to be tough to find, like back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s. I mean, do you feel like that's going to be a good thing for the hobby going forward if they kind of follow that trend, at least for, like the Flagship and O-Pee-Chee and all these other cards?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, I love that about the hobby. Like, I really enjoy those, those types of products where those kinds of cards are rare. For the card that you just talked about, the MVP, that was from 14-15. The gold scripts that year were like a retail exclusive. Mm-hmm. So I think you got one per box. Not too rare, but I mean, for the lower end guys, they don't get listed too often because obviously with retail stuff, kids are opening it, stuff like that. So it's probably, in a kid's box or something somewhere. So we'll see if I ever get one. I mean, I don't like that it's on the WAN list, a card out of 100, but also part of me is like, it's kind of cool that it's on the WAN list, makes it rare again. And so when you land a card out of 100, it's going to feel like that much more awesome. So
well,
hopefully one day.
I still don't have a Fleury gold script from MVP this year.
I mean, I don't know if they were always retail exclusives for the past couple of years. I believe mostly they were. I think one year they weren't, but I believe for the most part, they're usually retail exclusives, which
It's
again
been
makes
that way for a while.
Has
yeah,
it? Right.
yeah,
But that's cool though, because it
It's
adds
cool.
even another layer of
Right.
toughness in essence to find your player. So a card out of 100 for Connor McDavid collectors or whoever maybe doesn't carry much significance, but I feel like for us, because there's not many of them out there that you see, a card out of 100 isn't just going to be out of 100. Like this is a really tough card. The first one I've seen in 6 months or ever, like I feel like there's that extra layer of excitement with a card like that. And again, I think that's so cool that you guys are bringing that kind of information to us, because it helps me keep a positive light on the hobby and just make it more exciting to track down certain cards that maybe the majority of the hashtag investors are not looking for. Like I'd much rather have one of those than a $3,500 101 Fleury Adidas patch. Like, okay, that's a cool card, but I'd much rather track down these other ones that have a bit of toughness to them, but are still not going to break the bank. So I did want to mention that one of the coolest things I thought Upper Deck did in Series 1, and most of us in our 30s, late 20s, whatever, that was around when Upper Deck game jerseys first hit the market in the 90s, was the original game jerseys. And to bring this design back, I think it was just so special. And I love that you had Billy talk about that, and also them doing a patch variation. It's shout out to Ian on Facebook for making that work for me. But when I saw that Fleury was in there, like Eric was saying, I'm like, I don't know how many there are. I didn't even know there was a patch version at the time. So here I go and I spend what I did on the jersey card that I got, which I love. It's on the shelf over there. But then you guys uncovered it a little bit more. And I don't know about you, Aaron, but Eric, did that, really get you excited that they're starting to bring back more of these, like we call them the OG designs? Like that's got to make you pretty stoked for what could be coming, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm not a player collector specifically of any of the guys that are in that set, but I would love to grab. I know Patrick Kane is in it. I'm a big Blackhawks fan. Fleury, obviously, as we already said, is in it. So if I could get even just a jersey version of either of those guys for my collection, just as kind of like a cool card to have, that's definitely something I would love to do. I know Aaron is all about the retro designs and bringing it back.
I love, like, okay, so like with the retro designs, they are awesome, but they also terrify me to no end, because part of me is like, that's so cool. I love that they brought that back. But another part of me is like, wait. I remember when that came out. Does this mean I'm getting old? You know what I mean?
Yes,
like those throwback designs from like 10 years ago or whatever that they would use. Like, I'm like, okay, like that's a set they used way back when. Cool, whatever, awesome card. But now in the 2020s, they throw it back to like 2010, 2011. I'm like, wait. I remember those. You can't do that now. You can't do that now. Just wait a bit, I think so. It's a double-edged sword, but overall, I love that they do throwbacks. I know some people think it's played out. No, it's cool. In the '96 designs that you just showed is super cool. And yeah, I mean, like I would love one, like just the basic Fleury jersey one. It's pretty expensive though, so I might wait a little bit and see.
It's coming down to like 50. I'm seeing the sweet spot being 50.
Very expensive though, so I'm gonna wait until it comes down a little bit more, hopefully.
I was playing the numbers in my head, Eric. I don't know if you did this too, and Aaron, knowing that the patches are out of 15, that kind of sets the standard for those.
Right.
And then you think, are the jerseys, is there twice as many? Are there 3 times as many? Because we know the product is spread way out, like we talked about, which is good.
Yeah,
so
like with the game jerseys, but also you got to remember, like, and who knows with Fleury, but like even for years prior, like some game jerseys were like short printed, like certain guys,
right.
So it's like, you try to do the math of like how many could there be, but also wait a minute, could this player be short printed? So you never really know.
And that's where Eric and I have that dilemma. Like I paid like over $30 for the MVP postseason Fleury. It was the first one I saw, and I'm like, oh my gosh, there could only be like 20 of these. I got to pay $30 for it, and now you can get them off ePack for like $6 or $7. Like, okay, I learned my lesson with that. But like the Fanimation, we don't know how many were printed. I mean, those are big dollar cards, especially the earlier versions from 17, 18. So it's really kind of fun to like figure out, all right, like, do I go for this one or do I wait for the next one to come up? And I, the unannounced stuff, I hope they never stop doing that. I mean, that is by far my favorite thing about Upper Deck right now is that Billy and the other product managers are Easter egging it up for us. With April coming up, I feel like that's perfect. With Easter coming up, but like they really do, man. Peachy had like 4 or 5 or 6 different things in there that nobody knew about. The 3D rookies, the black and white parallels, the close up, the post game. I'm sure I'm forgetting something else. The tall boy, regular sized. I mean,
I love the tall boys. Those are so cool. Those are the coolest thing. I love the foil ones that they do. I want to get one of those. Apparently, they're ridiculously rare. Like I saw someone post some numbers up.
Mm-hmm.
Like I forget the ratio they used, but it was the first time that I'd seen the ratio of how rare these are, and it was crazy rare.
Right.
Just those Easter eggs are so cool. I'm going to mention this to Billy next time, but Upper Deck should do like an Easter egg shaped card and put it in there for people.
Dude, like just go full in on it, man. Just embrace the meme in a sense,
Yeah, like it doesn't have to be an Easter egg, but just the shape. Like the theme of the card could be whatever, but just the shape has to be an egg shape. That's all I want.
I'm gonna throw this like hot take at you guys, or like a question, like right off the cuff. Think about all the 90s inserts, early 2000s. Think about designs. Think about the sets that were big. I've talked about on this podcast Essential Credentials. I think we all know that those have got to make a comeback at some point. I mean, the popularity is through the roof on those from the 90s, or the Flair Showcase Legacy editions. Those are kind of set in stone as amazing. So we'll skip that. Look back on all the inserts from the 90s and so forth that Upper Deck has made in any sport. What is one that you would like to see come back? Just if you could just snap your fingers and Billy in his head, he's like, yeah, great idea. Boom, let's do it next, whatever, Upper Deck or Metal or whatever. What's one that you'd like to see come back, Eric? Start with you.
That's tough. To give a good answer, I definitely have to like go back and look through checklists and stuff.
Right.
One that I don't know why this one in particular is coming to mind, and it's been one that's been done over the years off and on. Again, I have literally no idea why this is the first thing that comes to mind, but the MVP Pro Sign cards,
yes.
Those were obviously MVP still to this day is a very low end product, but being able to get an autograph card in a product like that was, a huge deal back in the day. So, I think even just kind of like that concept of like offering kind of like these big chase cards in even very cheap products. Right. I know there are still autographs in MVP, but I think at this point they're just base parallels for certain players. So
and their stickers too. Yeah.
Yes. There's not been on card in MVP in many, many, many years. So even if it was just something like that, make them extremely difficult to pull. Right. Like not even want a case, like make it really hard. But
right.
Even something like that, I feel like those were very underappreciated cards. Over the last probably 10, 15 years, but back in the mid 2000s, those are pretty desirable cards just because of how tough they were. So, it doesn't have to be anything like super fancy or elaborate or unique, but even just like the idea of something being really tough, and maybe in a lower end product, something like that, just something that you can immediately appreciate. And, like we've been saying, look back at those days in the 90s and early 2000s and say, yeah, I remember that. The fact that they brought that back is really cool.
Great choice. Yeah, I do like those a lot. I have, I think, a Rick Ann Keel from early 2000s. And then you go and look at the odds, not just of pulling one of those of any player, but thinking about, okay, it's a 20 card set and these are like 1 per 4 cases. Like, okay, there can't be that many. So, yeah, great choice. What about you, Aaron? Where you've had a little bit more time to think. What are you going for here?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's about a set from 20 years ago from a 102 SB Game Use. The SP patch card set. I'm not sure if anyone knows what I'm talking about, but
see if I can find a picture while you're talking about it. I'll see if I can bring it up.
Yeah. I'm sure you've seen it around. It's a very popular set. A lot of people have tried to put it together. Like just a really nostalgic set for me. I have the Brodeur from the set, so like kind of a weird card. How they have the picture in the middle and the patch or the patch on the side, and then the autograph going, vertical there. So
Oh, it's autographed as well because I have a patch
Auto
card.
patch. Yeah, there's patches, there's autographs. So
Oh, there it is. Here's a John LeClaire that I'll pull up for Simone Gagne. Excuse me. My bad.
yeah. The patch autos are really cool. Out of 50, really cool cards. Yeah, just those ones there. So just a really nostalgic set for me. Again, like I have the Brodeur. It's probably my most expensive card that I bought to date, I would think, or one of from years ago. And just, yeah, it's a set that I know a lot of people have tried to collect, and one that I wouldn't mind seeing, a couple of modern players on it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think both you guys hit it right on the head. It's like it's fun to picture, obviously the McDavids and the Shesterkins and the guys that are like the most talked about players. But our guys, I like seeing them do a Slavin, or seeing them bring back a legend like Brodeur, or having Fleury on a design that we know so well, but it being a modern player. That's why, having a patch card of Fleury on like that iconic design was just like, that was my most wanted card going into Series 1. I'm like, that's the one I have to go for. So I think for me, both of you should know this design. Baseball and basketball did it, and I think football. It's called the Lynch Pins. It was from 1998-99 Metal Universe. I feel like a little modern twist on that card would make it really, really cool. Like kind of like what they did with the Platinum Portraits by doing the laser engraving dots. You take that with a little bit of extra foil and that orange and yellow contrast. I mean, players could look really, really cool on there, like in an action shot. That would be my choice. But what's got to be cool for Billy is the possibilities are endless. They own all the rights to all those inserts. They can bring them back whenever they want, and that's I think my favorite thing, especially having Jean Arena and her husband working for Upper Deck again. They came up with a lot of really cool Fleer designs back in the 90s that they can now put their own modern twist on. So that's going to be really cool. I mean, I'm excited for the future of Upper Deck. I know you two are, just from hearing you talk about it. But I think
one thing to add on to that too, I know when we talked to Billy about Metal Universe, he was very clear that like, just because these are the inserts we did for this product does not mean these are all coming back next year,
right,
or that this is all that it will be. It will be within this box. He said, no, like there are so many other old Metal Universe inserts, whether they were hockey or not, that will be in 21-22. So, I don't know if the Lynch Pins will be one of those or not. I'm sure, it's probably on the list for some point.
Yeah.
But, I know he was very adamant about that specifically with Metal Universe, that as we see that product come out in future years, that those inserts will change. I'm sure some of them will be in it every year, like the retro cards, I'm sure will be in it every year. That just makes sense.
It's a staple of the Metal Universe, right? Like you can't not have them in there. Yeah.
Right. But as far as other inserts, I know that he's very excited to keep those fresh and different every year.
Yes, that's awesome. Aaron, this actually popped into my head real quick before we get to the last question. I mean, I know Jonas doesn't have any American-made cards. I think it would be amazing if somehow he got into a set just for you. But do you still find just as much excitement now? I don't know how active you are in collecting these cards that are coming out, but are you still just as excited seeing these new products coming out now that you've got, this relationship with Billy, and you're hearing about the intricacies of the whole production of the set? Is it just as exciting for you now?
Oh, for sure. It's definitely a thing that I keep my eye on. If there's a Fleury card or a nice goalie card, just in general, that I might want to grab, I might want to take a run at it, for my collection. So yeah, I'm still active, in new products a little bit, depending on cards that catch my eye. So yeah, it's definitely not lost on me the time that it takes to build these products. And so obviously you can't help but appreciate them. And obviously just a fan of cards, I love when people share off the new stuff. Or if we are fortunate enough to get a box, of new product for the podcast, opening up and seeing the newest cards is always an awesome thing to do. So yeah, for sure. Although, in every product that there might not be cards for me in my collection specifically, I definitely enjoy them just as much, for sure.
Right. And that was really fun. I know my first episode listening to you guys do a product break was Series 1 from last year. Was it Series 1 or Series 2?
I want to say Series 1.
because you pulled a
I
Carey
believe.
Price card that you were really happy about. You pulled the
French.
French, that's right. It was the
Yes.
French. That's
It
right.
was so cool.
I'm glad my memory is serving me well. And
Yeah, I'm glad they brought those back.
yeah, for sure. That is really neat. But I can tell when you guys are doing that and you're having that discussion, you're appreciating the base card pictures. Like, Eric, you talked about, or I can't remember if it was both of you or Eric, talked about the base card design of this year's flagship. And I really liked it because there's two different photos. And they hadn't done that in a while. A lot of times it's the photo on the front is the same as the photo on the back, if there's a photo on the back. And I understand it's expensive to purchase the rights to it and all that. I get that. But I thought it was great that they had the smaller picture in the bottom left and the bigger picture. And it was, vertically aligned the way it was. And the name was, sideways. I mean, that looks awesome. And the exclusives and the high gloss look just as nice because of that design. And then, of course, they did the suit variations, those are really fun. Day with the cup and all that. But I just love that, I noticed that you guys were talking to him about it. He liked it. He noticed it. Like, I just thought it was great to look at cards now when base cards come out and try to go beyond, just the player that's on the card and go into the intricacies that you guys dig up for us. And this is just me giving a PSA to other collectors. Do that a little bit more, man. Like, take the time and pull your base cards out, pull the cards from years ago out and take a look at them and just see like, oh, that one's got 3 different photos on it. That one's got a photo and then they edited it this way. Like, there's so much more that goes into cards that I think the general collector gives Upper Deck credit for. And, or in the game from back in the day, you guys do a great job of highlighting their cards. You guys are big fans of them. And after listening to your podcast, I was like, there's got to be some Fleury in the game cards that I'm just not on. And I assumed that you guys did your underrated cards.
Yeah.
And I immediately went out and grabbed the Fleury that you talked about. I'm like, yep, that one needs to be in my collection. That's way better than I even thought it was. I'd just go right past it before, So thanks for making me spend money, guys.
I mean, if you want ideas to spend money, go check out, the In the Game Masked Men parallels of Fleury, and those are just amazing. Like, I love those cards. So if you want to spend some more, type in the game Masked Men Fleury on eBay, and you'll be spending a couple of dollars for sure.
It's really funny you mentioned that because I had a gold out of 10. I'm like, wow, this is Gold's the mask that he wore, and I went to go buy it 2 days ago, and I swear to you, an hour after I put it on my watch list, it had been on eBay, I'm sure, forever. It was gone. I was like, are you serious? No way.
Yeah. So the gold ones are really cool and they're really hard to find. So just really cool cards. Like, speaking of pictures, and cards nowadays and being active in the hobby and stuff like that, they're not so much recent, but over the past couple of days, I've been adding to my Enroth cameo card project. I'm not sure if you know about this, but just adding cards that actually picture Enroth on the card, even though it's not his card. So I found a couple the other day to add, so they're currently incoming. And I found another that is weirdly expensive. Eric, maybe you have one. It's Andrew Shaw's UD Canvas Young Gun.
Okay.
Enroth's pad is actually on that.
Is it really?
It's just a little bit,
He's such a nerd.
So I found the full picture, and sure enough, he's scoring on the Sabres that game. So
let's see if I can find it here, because now we have to have a little bit of a laugh, because I appreciate this level of.
Well, you were just talking about the little picture things, and I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah, that card, that was Shaw's first ever card. So that's actually
the Upper Deck Canvas one. Yeah.
Yeah, because he didn't have a normal Young Gun. So
okay.
That actually
that's the one, yeah. So if you see in the back their little pad, that's his pad. So so I'm like, oh man, I got to add that to the cameo project. So I've added a couple this past week, including a couple cool ones. So yeah, just you were talking about pictures, so I just wanted to highlight that little project where pictures are the main thing. So hey, it's something.
This is one of my favorite canvas designs right here. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's not all just about the value of a card. You can find something to appreciate about any card that you have, whether it's worth a penny or whether it's worth $1,000.
Well, the Shaws are actually like, they're fairly expensive, so which
They are.
kind of alarmed me. So I gotta wait and get one cheap unless Eric has one in his Blackhawks collection.
I don't, unfortunately. I want one, but
Okay, cool.
There's one ending in a day and a half, and it's not too bad yet. So maybe keep your eye on that one, and then I
Hopefully.
can say that I've helped you spend money too.
Hey, that's awesome. We're helping each other out, right?
That 11-12 Young Guns canvas is my favorite that they've ever done because of the borderless. I mean, they usually are borderless, but there's something about them. Obviously, Leland Irving is in that one. You guys know how much I like him.
Why do you collect Irving? Like I saw you post a couple of his cards. I don't think I've asked. It's a really cool collection. I remember him.
He, when I was doing my Young Guns master set, there were certain goalies, whether it was the design of their setup or just their story in general, that really kind of drew me into like wanting to like that player. I mean, Leland, like Marc-Andre Fleury, everybody that I've asked who's met him, heard about him on a team, said he's like the nicest teammate on the team. Super nice to the fans. He likes any card that I post of him on Instagram, so that also helps. You can see that he cares about those cards, and he's a cancer survivor at a young age, and so the things that he overcame just to get to the league. And then he played for, when I was very young, I lived in Everett, so he played for the Silvertips as well and played with Carter Hart. So there's certain things like Eric is saying, his cards aren't expensive at all, but they mean just as much to me as an expensive card of Fleury. Like I just knowing the story behind a player. And I think every single person who loves the player collect should find a side PC of a player that maybe doesn't have a lot of cards, but there's something about them that draws you to them because you can care a little bit more about getting those cards, And I think for Leland Irving, getting the high gloss here, this was like the pinnacle of collecting Leland Irving cards, because a high gloss Young Guns, probably never going to see another one from this long ago, from over 10 years ago. So it's been a really fun project. Thanks for asking. Yeah, it's there's not much of them out there in the game. There's a bunch from Silvertips, so I don't think I'll ever get done finding those. But that's really cool that you mentioned that, man. Photography really is everything, and I like Panini too, because some of the editing they did reminds me of some of the SP Authentic stuff they do now. So I really like that. There's, it would be so cool if they were still like, if there was a department of Panini and they said you can only make 3 sets a year, like having 3 sets from Panini and having Upper Deck kind of complementing each other. Like, where can Panini fill the gaps and where can Upper Deck fill the gaps? Like, it would be great to see what they could do together. But, that's me just wishing and not being realistic. So Upper Deck, man, they've really, they're like stature. I got to just love on that set to death. Whoever came up with that, I don't know if it was Billy, but man, that set, they crushed it. Like, even the base cards, as Aaron, you have that one next to you, like looking at that silver design, like those cards are the best no matter who you have and what player. So I like that they're still doing that kind of stuff too, man. Makes me happy.
Yeah, stature was amazing. Just everything about it was sweet. So it'll be cool when they bring that back.
Absolutely. Let's end with this question. Yeah, there we go. Flower power, baby. Wildflower power. Let's go. All right. Last question for you guys. And, thanks again for your time. I feel like I can't wait to have you back on here. Maybe at the end of the year, we look back on all these new products that have come out that you've heard about. But Eric, I'm going to start with you. Going forward the rest of this year, this is, the third year that you're going. I mean, 2 years plus, but going into 2022, up into 2023 next year. What is a goal, or what are a couple goals that you have for the podcast moving forward the rest of this year?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's something that I probably don't think about enough, honestly, for as important of a question as it is. Shameless plug. We were featured in Beckett Hockey recently, actually.
That's right,
and
man.
They also asked that question. And I think one thing is just like maybe trying to diversify guests a little bit, because I think we've kind of gotten in, and not that it's bad, but gotten in a groove with kind of having some of the same people on a lot. Obviously, someone like Billy, it makes sense to have him on a lot because he's the only one that can talk about that stuff. But,
right.
I think kind of earlier on in the podcast back in 2020, we did have a little bit more variety, and even like early 2021 had a little bit more variety one thing I really enjoy is episodes where we have a collector, just purely a collector on the show. I know we've done that a couple times, but it's been quite a while at this point since we've done that. And we alluded to that list of ideas that we had when we first started, and we have a list of probably at least like 10 more collectors that like we really want to have on at some point, but just haven't gotten around to it for whatever reason. So I think just kind of trying to add some of those more unique voices that maybe people aren't aware of.
Right.
Someone, I mean, like for you, like obviously, Kendall Mullen and, know what his collection's about and stuff. But for some people, they might not know, about, certain player collectors, and we don't want to even just stick to player collectors. Like there are some set collectors that we want to have on, and just guys that, like I know Kurt Johnson is a good friend of ours from the forums from many years back. And, he's a guy I talk to pretty much daily, but when I was making that list of people that I wanted to have on, I kind of had like Chris Pryor is known for Roberto Luongo, like whatever, kind of explain why we would have them on. And when I put Kurt on the list, I think I just said like tons of cool cards or something like that. Like he just has an amazing collection. So just being able to spotlight more people like that and kind of share some of the truly amazing collections that people have that maybe a lot of people might not know about. Some people like that are not quite as active with sharing their stuff on social media. So people, might recognize the name, but might not know much about them or their collection. Right. So I think that would probably be one, just sharing more collections. Not always have it be about us, not always have it be about new products, kind of sharing some of those stories a little bit more often.
And there's so many great stories to be told out there, man. I mean, I love doing it with the Instagram guys, and you guys know so many collectors from forums. I mean, I'm sure there's guys on Hobby Insider like, Joel Curry who sold me, or Carey who sold me a couple flurries. I mean, he's not on social media anywhere else. Like he's probably got an amazing story with all those cards. And so yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to that. How about you, Aaron? I mean, looking forward, is there a goal separate from Eric's there that you are kind of thinking would be nice to achieve by the end of the year?
By the end of the year, oh man, I was just gonna say like get to episode 100. Right. We do actually have something planned for that, but when you say end of the year, yeah, probably not by the end of the year, unless we start recording like right now, maybe we can. Goals for the podcast, honestly, I don't know. Again, like I should probably put more thought into this. Maybe have like an NHL player or something. Those guys are really cool. Just hearing their thought about the hobby, or if they collect in some capacity, or maybe like a former player or something like that, would be really neat. Just hearing the thoughts about the hobby, if they're involved in it in any way. I think if we can get someone on who maybe participates in the hobby would be extra special, like kind of combine all those ideas. But just like mine, like also aligns with Eric's, just getting more people on the podcast is always a plus. Like getting more collectors on, hearing how they got this card or that card is always really cool. I love hearing the stories behind that acquisitions. Like that to me is just super fun. And just we want to keep what we have going, and that's pretty much it. That's cool.
I will say.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Go for it.
I will say about the player thing. When we had Kendall on to talk about his Flurry collection, I actually was in contact with the Golden Knights PR staff trying to get Mark on the show, and the timing just didn't quite work out. But that would have been amazing. Obviously, all of us being huge fans of his, and just didn't work out. But yeah, that would have been awesome. But yeah, any player one day, that would be pretty cool for sure.
That would be nuts, man. To see, I mean, Aaron, I don't want to give away too much of that episode because I want people to go listen to it, the details, but you've been able to live out that dream of collecting a person and a player, and not just because of how good they were on the ice or their setup or whatever, but because of who they are off the ice and the teammate that they are, and to meet them, like that's the ultimate experience. And recording that segment for this news sports show that's coming out soon. If Fleury were to even see it one time, like that would just be enough for me, like that would be cool. But to be able to talk to him, I mean, that would be even a bigger dream come true. So I definitely recommend people to go listen to Center Ice Cardcast, let alone the episode where Aaron talks about his trip. That was really fascinating for me to listen to. A couple things on there, I was like, wow, like no way. So
yeah, it's super cool. It's called The Sweetest Adventure, I think it was called. Yeah, so check out for that. I think it was the second episode of 2022, I believe. So it was really
52,
cool.
I think.
52.
Yeah, something like that. It was really cool.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super cool, man. And again, I'm really excited for what you guys are bringing to the hobby and what you'll continue to bring to the hobby. And thanks for being a positive side of Upper Deck at all times. I think we need to keep informing people as best we can about just how amazing these cards are. It's not about the dollar amount all the time. I mean, it helps. Don't get me wrong. It is nice to know that you've pulled a $1,000 card or $100 card or whatever. But I think we want to continue to kind of go back to the roots of collecting. As kids, like I just pulled a goalie out of this pack, and the picture is awesome. Yes, I got a Carey Price French variation. Sure, you can go on eBay and buy it for $4, but that's not the point. It's about you pulled it from a pack yourself, and you're looking at all the intricate details. Like that is where collecting at its roots is the most exciting. And anything beyond that, the big cards that you acquire, those are just even more exciting. Like you're already enjoying the hobby at its roots. And I think that's what you guys are continuing to show with your episodes and with your interviews with Billy. And I hope that more people eventually can, come to that realization just how incredible it is to get any product to us, let alone the Cup or Premier, or Stature or whatever. So, thanks again for taking the time out. I mean, it's awesome to talk to both of you, and and Instagram, love all the interactions that we all have going on there. That's an amazing community. I'm glad we're all a part of that. And any final thoughts from you, Eric, before we get going?
Couple questions for you. I'll turn the tables a little bit here.
All right.
It's a two-part question. First, what is your favorite Marc-Andre Fleury card that is not a rookie card or not that patch card that you've shown off a couple times?
Oh yeah, the All-Star one.
So
yeah, that was a good one.
One of those.
Okay.
That's the first question. Second question, what's your favorite non-Fleury card that you have?
Great question. Well, man, it's hard not to say Leland Irving High Gloss Young Guns. That's up there, but I would say the Jocelyn Thibault Platinum. Let's see if I get this right. I haven't said the card's name in so long. The totally certified Platinum. And that's not Rainbow. What the heck is it called? I can't remember.
Mirror Gold.
Mirror Gold.
Yeah, Platinum Mirror Gold. Thank you.
Those are legendary.
I mean, it's sitting on the shelf over there for crying out loud. I mean, I should remember it, but that card in the sunlight is the most spectacular card I've ever seen. I stick to it to this day. You saw Dollar Rookies, I think is his name. He was selling his Patrick Waugh for like a ridiculous amount, but that card is the best looking non-upper deck card that I've ever seen. And I don't know if it'll ever be topped. So it's by far that one. It's so tough to pick. We were just talking about it on my last episode with, we did the underrated sets or card idea that you guys gave me. I was like, this would be so much fun to do with just Fleury. So let's try it out. There's that McDonald's card holds a really special place in my heart. The McDonald's Gold out of 100. I don't know if you guys have seen those. It was McDonald's Parallels.
They're really sweet. They're amazing.
Man, they sparkle like crazy. I mean, I couldn't believe how amazing that card looked like. I knew it was nice from the scan, but when it showed up in my hands, I sat in the sunlight with it for like 5 minutes. I'm like, wow, look at that angle. Look at that angle. I mean, that one, especially because he's got the yellow pads on. And when I think of Fleury in his younger days, I think of those yellow pads and them coming out of the basement and becoming a really good team. And then, it draws me to his story of why he got rid of the pads and went to white and all this. And that's up there. I don't know if that's the favorite, but it's definitely one that is in the display case that's never going to come out. Like it's front and center on that one shelf for sure. So,
and not an expensive card.
It was $30. I mean, there is one on ComSeer. There was for like 300, and the guy never lowered the price. I'm like, oh, please let one pop up. And last summer, there it is. And like, if nobody bids, I'm going to be so stoked. Nobody else bid, so I'm glad Aaron didn't see it because he probably they're pretty amazing. I've got to get one in your hands, dude. Like that's such a special card. So cool. And to think that it came from McDonald's packs, like who knows how much of that was made. So just
it was a lot. It was a lot. You know, like being
Millions.
in Canada, it was ridiculous. The hype around those cards, just unreal. I got a bunch back in the day. So yeah, those were awesome. So a lot were made. It's similar to the Tim Hortons release. Just the parallels mean that much more because there is so much made, and we were just talking about it at the beginning. So much product being made. It means those cards out of 100 are pretty rare.
Definitely.
So it's a good one to hang on to.
Definitely. Good. Well, I love those questions. Thanks for that, Eric. Yeah, definitely. I know that Tebow was an expensive card, but it's one of those rare instances in our collections where, like, you know, the Fanimation, you know, you're pony up a little bit for this because it's really special. It looks amazing. It's rare. It's really tough to find. Like all those factors, you can justify spending that amount on a card. My Fanimation was expensive, but I haven't seen a Fleury before that, and I doubt I'll see one again. So there's some times where you just have to, you know, get to that point where you're like, I don't have to justify it. I know this is a good price point, and you don't even look back, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have the same thing where I just got as excited about picking up, you know, a $2 Tebow parallel from Pacific that I hadn't seen before, the premiere day. Like this is just as exciting because like this might show up, you know, in 4 or 5 years if that again. So yeah, definitely have an appreciation for that. But yeah, Aaron, any final thoughts from your end before we head out?
I was just going to ask Eric of his favorite card, and then for me to name a favorite card just before we end. Wasn't part of the questionnaire, but Eric, I'm not sure if you want to go with your favorite card.
Would love to hear
your collection.
Oh, that's tough. I mean, see if I can dig it out if it's accessible.
Or I can go first, then you can just
go
dig
ahead.
out a card. Cool.
Well, we want to make sure to say favorite card that's not a rookie or like a really expensive cup patch type deal, like something in that mid tier.
Okay. You know? Like I was gonna name the Skull and Crossbones patch, but you know, like that's a cool patch card. So
cool.
I won't name that one, even though I just did. I cheated. So like non-cool Skull and Crossbones patch. Oh man, that's a good one. I would say funny story. Like I have a like a KHL stick card, and it's actually the regular version is at a 10, but there's actually like a promo card version that I didn't know existed. And so I got that from a collector overseas who apparently got it from Enroth himself. Like I guess the company actually just gave extras to the player and stamped them, you know, promo card. And then Enroth was given 10 and gave this guy one or all of them or something like that. So then he gave me one for my collection too. And so like he told me the story about that, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like I owned a card that belonged to the player, like, and it wasn't released in packs, obviously, just pretty rare. So that's something you don't see every day, and just really, really cool. So yeah.
And that's a card that fits so perfect into the type of collection you've built, because Enroth is not a guy that, you know, thankfully for myself and for Eric, you know, Slavin and Fleury get into sets still. So we know there's going to be new cards to chase. You've got to go a lot deeper and search out these cards that none of us even know about that you can add, and those have so much more special meaning. So yeah, I feel like I've heard you talk about that on the podcast before.
I think I did when I received it, but those KHL cards can be very tough, especially when, like, I had to learn this the hard way. You know, when an NHLer goes overseas there, he becomes like the latest and greatest thing as far as like cards go. And so, you know, maybe like an NHL player over here, he might be in the bottom tier of sets, common. If an NHLer goes to the KHL, they're like number one, and everyone wants those cards. So it was a little bit of a weird feeling having more competition for his cards over there. But, you know, it was definitely a really cool part of my collection. You know, when I look back at those KHL cards, a lot of stories with those. So very cool.
Cool. How about you, Eric? Were you able to find one?
So I thought of one. I was trying to grab it because I knew it was on my desk, but it's kind of going against our parameters here because it's definitely not a cheap card whatsoever. Not the most expensive card I have either, so I'll justify sharing it in that regard. Anyone that's listened to our show knows that obviously I like 0304 cards, and one set in particular that I liked is the In the Game Used Signature Series Triple Memorabilia cards. Just a very timeless, iconic design, I think, and collected that set. Have the whole set. It was a really tough set to complete because some of the cards were as scarce as only 15 copies, and there were some huge names in it like Bobby Orr, Patrick Waugh, Jacques Pont, a lot of pretty notable names for sure. So it was a tough set to complete, but I just loved the look of the cards so much. And then back in, I think it was maybe like July of 2020, maybe August of 2020, probably right around there, probably August-ish. We had Dr. Brian Price on the show. Yep. And, of course, anyone that's been around for a while knows that Dr. Price is arguably like one of the forefathers of the hockey card hobby, especially when it comes to memorabilia cards. And, of course, one, thing that he's well known for, if not most known for, is, getting George Vezina memorabilia. And just being able to talk to him about the Vezina pads and stuff definitely gave me a new appreciation for them. I didn't have any Vezina pad cards prior to that. I had a skate card, but that was it. And then just kind of thinking of, another thing he was known for is the made-to-order cards over the years. And over the last few years, he now owns a company called President's Choice, and he will make custom cards for people every now and then. So having spoken with him and, kind of having some thoughts in my head, I said, I want to do, some type of Vezina card with Dr. Price. And I was thinking about it. And then, oh, well, of course, this is the perfect idea. So I worked with him to make a custom made to order triple memorabilia using that design of George Vezina. So obviously it's kind of hard to see, but pad, skate, and stick all on the same card, which you just don't see.
It's amazing.
Pretty much ever. To the best of my knowledge, there's only 3 cards ever made that have all 3 types of memorabilia on it. So this being one of them. So, just the experience of making that card with him, it's truly a favorite card. It's not the most valuable card I have, just based on what I paid for it, but just the experience of working with him and what all went into that, was a very special experience for sure. So, tying all those things, the design, the personal connection with Dr. Price, obviously the significance of what the card itself is, just tying all those things into one card makes that definitely one of my very favorites for sure.
I like that both of you guys share that how the personal connection behind the card makes such a big difference. And I should have let you guys go first. I mean, you did throw it to me because now I'm thinking like, well, that one card in there, I had like 3 people help me track down. You know what I mean? Like that's, I think, a nice little thing to mention. Like our collections would not be nearly where they're at without the connections that we've made in the hobby. I emphasize this in my videos with showcasing cards on my podcast. You guys do the same. Like, it is so important to reach out and branch out and meet different collectors and just see what you share in common, because once you've done that, people in your corner and you're in their corner helping them find cards like that. That's the best part of the hobby, hands down. When a card gets to your collection, and like Aaron said, you just met a guy who got a card from Inruth, so now you've made a new friend that you can talk about that player with, and now you're telling Jonas that you got this card that he once had. I mean, like, there's so many different layers to it, and it just adds to the complexity and enjoyment of the hobby. So, like, yeah, I think hearing those stories from you guys is exact reasons why I love continuing to collect and beyond just, Fleury's in a new set or whatever. It's more than that now. It's more than okay, this guy right here helped me track down this card. Never thought I'd see it. And here's a game patch card. And now I've made a new friend, 2 new friends actually in the hobby. I mean, that's what it's all about. So thanks for mentioning those things on here. I enjoy people advocating for that side of the hobby. Need more of it.
No, you definitely do. Like, I often think about, and you guys listening could think about this as well. What would my collection look like if I was just buying things on eBay? That was my only tool to use. Obviously you would have probably still the majority of your collection. That's fair. But just think of all those pieces you would miss out on,
Yeah.
and just look at like, what would my collection look like? And you're probably missing a ton of cool stuff. So just food for thought tonight, if you're listening to this, it's really fun to think about just how much people help.
Absolutely. And Eric, I mean, you're probably in the same boat, right? With that thought.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, there are so many examples. I mean, literally just today, I got a really nice Slavin card. It's a Cup signed printing plate from his rookie year. There's a guy that was on Hobby Insider who kind of like, he has a little collection of Jacob Slavin. He's not a super collector, but he'll just pick up cards here and there. We've talked on and off over the years, just like, oh, hey, like what stuff have you gotten lately? Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget the context, but I messaged him a few weeks ago, and we were just talking, and I said, I think like back in the day, we were talking about how you had something that I needed. Like, what all do you have again? And so he sent me a list of everything he had, and I was like, oh yeah, like there was that printing plate that you have, and there were a few others. He had some high gloss cards, and something else too that were like cards that I like wanted, but I already had a copy of, so I didn't need them. Whereas this one, obviously being a 1 of 1, was something I didn't already have. And so I said, yeah, like here's these 5 cards that you have that like, if you'd let them go, like I'd be interested in them. And he was like, okay, well, how about this? Like, I know like you're probably the biggest Slavin collector there is. So just pick one of those cards and I'll send it to you. Just like out of, like, I didn't suggest that or anything. Like that was purely his doing. Awesome. And, I said like, that's the one I want. Like, I fully understand it's the most valuable. So like, if you're not like, if you don't want to do that, like no obligation whatsoever. And he's like, no, like I know you'll appreciate it probably more than I do. Mm-hmm. And I know it's going to a good home. So yeah, like shoot me your address and it's yours. Awesome. And arrived today. And it's like, yeah, like if we didn't have that relationship going back, and not that we talked all that often, but just talking here and there, kind of establishing that, good friendship, just kind of aware of each other and looking out for each other. If we didn't do that, like there's no way I would ever have this card in my hands today. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's awesome, man. We've all had random acts of kindness like that. I mean, I guess it's not as random, but still like people just sending us cards. I mean, it's like I feel bad, but I'm just like, I'm kind of overwhelmed. Like, am I being generous enough towards other people too? Like, I need to make sure that I'm doing that because I sent some cards to Declan. He's a really big Blackhawks fan. You guys know him on Instagram. But to see a picture of him and he wrote me a note and sent me this hand-drawn note, like the note itself means way more than the chocolate and the Marc-Andre Fleury shirt that they sent me. Like that right there was, and the picture of him smiling with the Fleuries, this big old smile, like a hockey smile, tooth just fell out. Like it was perfect, seeing the happiness on other people's faces after doing something like you just mentioned, Eric. I mean, that's again what it's all about. So we got to continue spreading that kindness, and yeah, you guys are doing a great job of that. Thank you, as well as the podcast. So don't. I need my prep time entertainment. So please keep rolling them out for me. Let's try to get to 100 early next year. That would make me happy. For sure. But cool. Well, thanks guys again for coming on. Really enjoyed having you. Can't wait till the next time. And thank you for everybody that's listening. We'll catch you next week. See ya.